Hello and welcome. You're watching Big Picture with me, Vishal Dahiya, and today we're going to talk about the draft drone rules 2021, which have been recently released by the Ministry of Civil Aviation. And a clear focus seemingly here is to give a big push to the new age technology, the future technology and its implementation on the ground. Now, these rules make it much more easier for individuals and companies to go ahead and own and operate drones, and also makes the certification process a little more simpler for the manufacturers and the other stakeholders there as well. So we'll try and understand what is new in these draft rules which have been released, because just around 4 months back, the US rules were also put in place. What's the change which has come in place, why there is a change, and how this change will help in giving a push to this new age technology. And for more on this, we're joined by two distinguished experts. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Mr. Rajan. Luthra is with us. He is the chairman of FICCI's drone committee. And we're also joined by retired Group Captain Ajey Lele, senior fellow with the MPIDSA. Welcome, both of you gentlemen. Let me begin with you, Group Captain Lele, and let's start by understanding, before we talk about the draft rules, let's first understand as to why do we need a rules or a policy or a regulatory mechanism in place for drones?
I think now drones, in a relative sense, is a new system, a system which has got tremendous amount of a potential. At the same time, there are certain amount of a concerns also that if you allow without rules sort of a usage of drone systems, then there could be many challenges. Only recently, we have seen what happened, a terrorist attack on the Air Force Station Jammu. So everybody understands that drone, in a sense, is a double-edged sword, where if you don't have proper rules and regulations, you will not be able to use the system effectively. On the other hand, you should not get bogged down because drones have been used by the terrorist organizations, and there is a possibility that this system could be used as an asymmetric weapon. Because the system itself has got tremendous amount of a utility from various purposes. We have heard drones being used for delivering of a pizza, but these are very on a lighter note. But essentially for an agriculture economy like India, you have got tremendous amount of a utility of a drones, even in your farming sector. There are various other sectors in the logistics sector, even in the entertainment industry, maybe for the purposes of recreation. So there are tremendous amount of a usage of these systems. Okay. So one should not get bogged down because of the negative connotations of the system. So if you have proper rules and regulation in place, then definitely we can take advantage of these new emerging systems.
Okay. Clearly, there are a lot of opportunities as far as utilization of drones is concerned. And you spoke about the challenges there, Captain Lele, but we'll come back to that part a little later. Let me first bring in Mr. Luthra here, from the industry. Mr. Luthra, from your perspective, if we have to understand, because there were a set of rules which were put in place in early March this year, and now we have new draft drone rules. What exactly has changed when we look at those rules and these new, set of rules which are part of that draft? Second is, as Captain Lele is pointing out, the utilization opportunity or the capacity which is there for the drone technology to be used in various sectors. How do you look at that?
I think between the rules, the US rules 2021, which were released on 12th of March this year, they had unfortunately got a little bit skewed towards the increasing the security and the protection against the rogue drones, as Captain Lele was also mentioning. The new rules which have just been announced, the draft drone rules 2021, actually are transformational in the sense that they are now enabling a lot of positive change. I'll highlight a few examples. Some of the requirements that were laid out in terms of the amount of permissions that were needed have been simplified significantly. Okay. Number two, we've had many requirements that were there for all the stakeholders, including the manufacturers, have been eased out, including what is needed for creating a prototype, what is needed for getting it registered. So all the aspects of the regulation have been made very simple. It's a very simple 8-page main document with some of the forms. And it has now become a very relatively easy to adopt regulations for the industry. And we welcome this initiative by the government agencies.
Okay. Okay, and in terms of avenues, if we look at Mr. Luthra, where do you see the opportunities? Because as Captain Lele was pointing out, there seems to be a lot more avenues. It's not just about delivery of certain items, but various sectors, the agriculture sector, the other aspects of industry, the service industry as well. Quite a lot of opportunities there in terms of utilization of drone technology.
Very much so. That is the reason why drones as a transformative technology have been compared with some core technologies like the internet itself or the GPS. The reason being that drones can be used in very significant diverse areas. Let's give a few examples. We all know about the Luthra scheme that was launched by the government maybe just a little over a year back. The drones over there within less than 1 year have enabled more than 500,000 village residents to get their property cards after the Abadi areas have been mapped out using drones. Likewise, currently there is a project that has been approved by the Ministry of Civil Aviation with the Telangana government, where it is planned to pilot the use of drones for even delivery of vaccines in remote areas. Agriculture is in any case another big area where not only micronutrients can be sprayed, but even surveys can be done to examine what precisely are the challenges or the issues the farmers are facing. And like this, I'm not even yet come to all the commercial opportunities for using drones. The railways are using it for track monitoring. Some of the telecom companies like ours are evaluating the option to use it for monitoring the towers. So it's an unending list of use cases and applications which generate not only value for the drone companies themselves, but significantly for the people who end up using them in their digital platforms.
Okay, indeed. So it benefits both the manufacturer as well as the user as well, and quite a lot of opportunities there, as both of you are pointing out. Let me go back to Captain Lele here. Captain Lele, your perspective and your views there, sir. If we have to look at both the rules, the US rules which were put in place in March and these new draft rules as well, quite significant changes. And Mr. Luthra is pointing out that from industry's perspective, that's a very positive and very welcome move.
I think the changes are very significant. Particularly, there is a ease of business, if I'm using a correct word. The industry will find it over here. Because earlier you had some 25 forms to be filled up and all that. Now that number has got reduced to 5. There is a lot amount of clarity about registration. There is a lot amount of clarity about remote pilot licensing, how to get into R&D developments. Even insurance has been taken care of. So there are various aspects which are associated with usage of a drone have been fully taken care of. There are proper forms also which has been made available. So people exactly know that what sort of certifications are required, what sort of policies are there in place, and how one can go ahead with it. If you really look at it, they have created something which is known as a digital sky platform. So under the digital sky platform, you will have various avenues which are open up to what height, what should be the weight of the drone, so on and so forth. So all those clarities which were missing are definitely there. And I think particularly what is interesting about this policy is that this is a very easygoing policy. Things are said the way they should be said. So there is nothing reading between the lines, which otherwise happens in various policy documents. So there is a more amount of clarity, to put it simplistically, I can say over here.
Okay. Let's now talk about how these rules will impact the overall industry or the overall ecosystem there. When we talk about, Mr. Luthra, I'd like to bring you in here. You spoke about the way there are avenues, the opportunities for utilization of drone technology. Now, if you have to look at all the stakeholders involved, from the manufacturer to the end consumer as well, where do we stand in India, in terms of the ecosystem which is in place, and with these new draft rules when they get implemented, how will things from your view will move ahead from here onwards, and what more the stakeholders will need to do?
So recently, in September of last year, drones had been identified as one of the 24 sectors which are being taken up by the Government of India, the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, as the area where Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme can be well implemented. Not only do we have a very extensive R&D being carried out at many of our educational institutes, including IIT Kanpur, IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, and many others. But at the same time, at the research, it's being transformed into actual products. We have more than 130 startups which are registered with BPIIT at last count. And the startups are then also being invested in by, let's say, companies which are now keen to leverage drones in multiple application areas within themselves and also offering these services to others. If you look at the, let's say, the end users themselves are eager to adopt these because they help them generate significant value, not only in reducing costs, but also in increasing the opportunity to leverage it in their digital value chains. And being an eye in the sky, as it is called, the drones have multiple other, let's say, areas that they can add even for, let's say, even the law enforcement agencies, the fire and emergency services, or even the healthcare services. So in that sense, I think there's a wide footprint of developments already happening in India. And we believe the cumulative market potential for drones in India over the next few years is as much as maybe 3 lakh crore of rupees in the next 8 to 10 years time frame.
Okay. So clearly that is something which is very positive if you look at the way forward ahead. Let's look at another aspect, and I'll bring in Captain Lele again here. Captain Lele, the draft rules and discussions on this draft policy also brought out a very important element, and that was that the integration of the unmanned aircraft systems or drones, as we call them, into the national airspace system presents a lot of challenges. And how can we overcome those challenges? What's the roadmap which should be adopted? Because ultimately we will have to look at the larger picture and the long-term scenario as well.
I think what is important to realize the fact that since this is a useful technology, since this is a technology which will boost up our industry, one has to ensure that security and drone systems will stay together, and very amicably they will stay together. If you look at the draft policy, they have identified few zones, that is a green zone, yellow zone, red zone, and all that. Of course, these zones are dynamic. If the situation slightly goes here and there, then they will change the nomenclature of these zones. But earlier from airport till say 45 kilometers, it was considered more as a no-flying zone. Now that has been reduced to 12 kilometers. So there are a lot amount of things which have been planned right now. Understanding that yes, we require these systems and we should not unnecessarily get bogged down because of overpowering security considerations. Nobody is saying that one should compromise the security, but one has to have a judicious mix of all those things. So if you see the policy document in details, they have identified that you got rules of, if I'm not wrong, 1937 or something for airspace management and all that. So till what height, what is the size of a drone? Say if it is more than 500 kgs or something, then it will have applicability of air traffic rules. Otherwise, there will be a separate drone rules. They have said that every drone has to have a pilot on the ground. Now, this gives us more opportunities that now we need to have certain amount of training schools for all those things also. So it's not only one technology which is put in place and it will start helping people. At the same time, there will be few offsets of this technology where you will have to require to do certain amount of investment to teach people also how to use the drone technologies, because they are not allowing the technology to go just like that so that anybody and everybody can use based on their whims and fancies. So definitely there are good amount of guidelines which are available over here. And what I was trying to make a point that we need to ensure that the guidelines are in such a fashion that your security considerations are not at all compromised, but at the same time, the technology can be used for all its advantages.
Okay, but we also have to look at, when we're talking about security aspect, Captain Lele, then we also have to look at this entire issue from the perspective of recent developments as well. And the recent developments which have, highlighted drones as a security threat, that is something which obviously raise concerns.
No, definitely. You see, now, if you really look at this policy, the policy document clearly says that these rules, regulations are not for the purposes of Army, Navy, and Air Force. I think since this is a draft document, they should use the wording of a paramilitary forces also. Because if you see, BSF is suffering a lot amount of problems because of the drones which is coming across the line. So we have come across few incidences where arms have been dropped by the drones. So there are a lot amount of security challenges which are existing. Everybody is aware of those challenges. Now what is started happening is that DRDO has already started developing an anti-drone system. There is one system which is already in place. So you got soft kill options also, you got hard kill options also. When one is talking of a soft kill options, one is talking of basically jamming the drones. So you got technologies which are available, say if a drone is around 3 kilometers away from your airstrip or from the vital area, then you can start jamming it. Then you got laser technologies which are available, which can shoot the drones also. Now the issue over here is that you need to clearly identify what sort of a incoming threat is there. I think there should not be any sort of a confusion that there is a civilian drone and it has been identified wrongly. So the concept of identifying friend or a foe correctly needs to be set in. But I think this will take time because nobody has used this system in such a fashion the way we are envisaged to use this system in coming few years. So it will take time. You will have to have different types of checks and balances which are required for these purposes from security dimension also. What is important is that you should ensure security fully, but at the same time, you should allow the system to be used for its civilian purposes too.
Okay, indeed, both things will have to go hand in hand because this is technology which needs to be used properly. We need to make full use of the entire potential there. Mr. Luthra, I'd like to bring you in here on the security aspects. And if we have to understand, as Captain Lele was pointing out, security is obviously important. Now, if we have to understand it from industry's perspective, because there is going to be a lot of stakeholders and industry being one of them in the way of both manufacturers as well as, operators also. And the entire ecosystem will have various other components as well. How do you think the security aspect has been dealt with in these rules and what more needs to be done, not only from the policy perspective, but from industry stakeholders as well?
So I think I would like to maybe add that the drones are essential for our future growth of various sectors and various applications. At the same time, the threat from rogue drones is also there. We cannot ignore that. But this is not an either-or situation. They both have to coexist. We will have to let the drones be used for social good and all the other applications. At the same time, we have to evaluate the threat and the risks for each of the sensitive and critical installations and deploy the counter UAS system or the counter drone system that they are called, as Captain Lele was explaining. The main thing being both of these can coexist without any problems. The point being, each of the drones has been specified to have an identification number, a unique identification number, with the transmission of their location, their altitude, their speed, as well as their, let's say, unique identification number to the unmanned traffic management system. This is the standard that is being followed all over the world, and this is what will enable you to identify that if any drone not emitting the unique identification number with all the other details, then it's obviously not a rogue drone. Number two, each and every flight of the drone will be monitored in the digital sky platform. So when any remote pilot is trying to fly a drone, he'll have to automatically register the flight path and get the permissions for what is called the no permission, no takeoff rule or capability of the drone. And based on that, all this data will be shared with the relevant agencies so they can also be able to monitor and make sure that what they are if any incoming threat is there, whether it's one of the verified drones or it's potentially a rogue drone, they can clearly identify that.
Okay. One more question before we bring this discussion to an end. Quickly, starting with you, Mr. Luthra, is now that the draft rules are in public domain and suggestions are being sought for, you've pointed out several aspects in terms of suggestions, in terms of more changes, room for improvisation. A room for improvement here as well when we are talking about these set of rules to tackle the drone technology in a holistic perspective?
Yeah, so when the UAS rules 2021 had come out, FICCI had taken the lead in coordinating with all the different stakeholders. And we had given exhaustive feedback to the concerned officials, specific recommendations that were coming. I'm happy with the question recommendation having already. And we are now going to study the rules in more detail, work with all the other stakeholders, then come back with a formal recommendation to Ministry of Civil Aviation as they have requested.
Okay. Quick concluding comment from you as well, Captain Lele, in terms of not only these rules and more suggestions, you're pointing out, certain aspects vis-a-vis the security, but if you have to also understand the way forward from here onwards for this particular technology.
In present context, as far as these rules are concerned, they have clearly identified that we will have drone corridors, we will have drone traffic management. So as far as security aspects are concerned, as far as identification of a friendly drone is concerned, everything has been taken care of. But if you really ask me, sky is the future for the entire drone technology. It can be used in various types of business activities. It will make your life much more simpler, particularly in the far-flung areas, right from disaster management to say your oil industry, high-rise buildings, everywhere where you require a remote access, where you feel that sending a human is going to be problematic, challenging for the health of the human being only, then you can have drone systems. Again, these systems are going to come in a very cost-effective manner, because the more amount of emphasis the industry starts giving it to it, the more amount of orders they get it, the cost of a system is also going to go down drastically. Okay. So in years to come, I think this is going to be the most cost-benefit analysis if one gets into it. This will be the most utilized system, both in a civilian domain as well as in a military domain.
Okay, definitely there is a lot of potential out there, as both our experts are pointing out. Thank you so much, Rajan, Luthra, as well as Group Captain Ajey, Lele, for sharing your views and insights. So this is all about the draft drone rules 2021, which have been put in public domain by the Civil Aviation Ministry. And a lot of changes have been made from the previous rules, which were there starting early March this year onwards. And all this has been done to go ahead and ensure that better utilization of drone technology can be made, and the services can be utilized by all, including the individuals and companies. And the entire process, the certification process, the licensing process has been more simplified. We'll come back again with a different topic. Till then, keep watching.